Thank you, everyone, for joining in. Good evening. My name is Nira Rahman, as you know, and I'm the head of the Department of English and Humanities at ULAB. I'm very, very happy to have with us today Dr. Nira Rahman, who is an academic from Australia. She is going to be talking to us about fostering respectful, inclusive, and diverse classrooms, RID classrooms. And I think this was a topic that's very essential, especially today in such a divisive world. So this is something that we would love to hear about. But before we launch into the presentation, I'm going to introduce our speaker for tonight, Dr. Nira Rahman. She is an academic specializing in educational design and student engagement at Arts Teaching Innovation in the Faculty of Arts, University of Melbourne, Australia. Her teaching and research are grounded in the scholarship of teaching and learning, through which she examines identity, positionality, and partnership pedagogy in higher education with a focus on equity, belonging, and culturally responsive practice. A senior fellow of HERDSA, she's the founding chair of the Teaching and Learning in Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences Special Interest Group, and serves as an associate editor for Teaching and Learning Inquiry. As a visiting scholar and invited speaker at various universities worldwide and through many international research collaborations, she brings identity and positionality to the forefront of pedagogical inquiry, contributing globally to SOTL conversations on co-creation, inclusive teaching, and transformative student-staff partnerships. She's also a published author in Bangla and writes for international media on culture, language, and identity, linking her academic work with personal insights. What is not on her CV is that she is also an accomplished Rabindra Sangit singer. And
Nozrul. Not
I'm
accomplished, but
sorry,
I try to sing.
Nazul singer. So that's her special quality outside of her academic interests. So I will hand over to Dr. Nira Rahman to proceed with the presentation. Thank you, Appa, for being here.
Thank you, Arifapa. Thank you so much, and um, thank you all for coming and being interested about this topic. And though I always feel that in-person workshops and this kind of discussion in person works better, uh, but it's a great way that we could be connected, across the globe and through this online space and everything. So it's great, and I know sometimes online spaces are not the best places for making an interaction. However, I would really love for you to, share your ideas, thoughts, and experiences, because this workshop is not just me talking about what I think or sharing the ideas from my end. I would really love for you to share your ideas and experiences and lived experiences and thinking at the same time. And what I heard from Arifapa, that there are some students as well. I know there are educators, but students as well. So we would really, and I'm sure that educators like me or whoever you guys are here, as educators, we always would love to hear from the students' perspectives too, because students also contribute to our the way we practice the teaching, or sort of develop our teaching strategies and pedagogical practices. So um, today we will talk about inclusive classroom, respectful, diverse, inclusive classroom. Now we'll be talking about what is diversity, what is inclusivity, and all these things. But before we go on all these, different perspectives, I would like all of us to think that, particularly look at this particular cartoonish picture. that if you look at that very closely, you will find that if you really look at from one end, it will look like that there are four wood logs. If you look at from the other end, it will look like there are three wood logs. Now, if I ask you that what is the right answer here, how many logs are there will be varied answers. And which one is the right answer? If I ask that, there are no right answers as such, because it's just the way where you are positioning yourself and how you are looking at, and your perspectives. So we'll start from there in a way, and would love to talk about the positionality, because when we talk about teaching practices, or not only teaching practices, teaching and learning, we actually bring ourselves, our thoughts, our lived experiences, our interests in classrooms. So positionality is very important in terms of the pedagogical practices. And when we talk about inclusive, respectful pedagogical practices in a diverse setting, this is very important. So we'll unpack the word positionality, the concept positionality. And it starts with who are you and what is your lens. So all of us, when we come to a classroom or even in this workshop, when we are here, it's like we are bringing the aspect of our identity, that is, who are we? And at the same time, we are bringing our lens. So I'm just now looking at my screen. I can see Arifa, I'm wearing pair of glasses. Arifa Appa is wearing a pair of glasses. I can see Dr. Sabrina wearing pair of glasses. So we think we three are educators. We are good buddies. So let's exchange our glasses. So I say, Sabrina Appa, I really love your glasses. So let's exchange. We can exchange our glasses, but when we exchange our glasses, the glasses will not work. Actually, our world around us will look fuzzy, because these pair of glasses are made for Sabrina Appa. These pair of glasses are made for me. Arif Appa's glasses are her glasses. So what I'm trying to say that we actually see the world through our lens, and our lens is not something we just get it. It's gradually through our lived experiences, through our interests, through the people we communicate, through the people we interact, and through traveling, through watching movies, through reading books, various different ways, we actually form our glasses. And remember that these lenses are not a static thing, it's changing, it's ever evolving. So we need to think that as I have my glasses, so like lens sort of to see the world, it's exactly the same way another person in my classroom has their lenses. So we all have our own lenses. So when we are really aware of the way we see the world is actually through our own lens, we will be aware of that every of us have different, lenses, positionality. And that's where the first bit of idea of bringing to be inclusive in diversity comes in. We'll unpack that gradually, but this is something we should keep in mind, and that's where the word or the concept positionality comes in. Now, looking at this identity wheel, I know we are all on sort of online space, but I would really love a conversation to kick in here. That if you look at the identity wheel here, there, if you look at the outer circle, you will find that there are different sort of identity markers such as gender, sex, sexual orientation, national origin, first language, ethnicity, race, religious and spiritual affiliation, age, physical, emotional, developmental ability, disability. And be mindful that I have put those, like, these identity markers are not all. They are just few examples. But what I would really love the discussion to kick in that way, that I want all of us to think first two questions: that what are the identities you think most about most often? And what are the identities you think about least often? Now, when we are talking about that, we should be mindful of that when we talk about identity, like who am I, Nira? Now, I am talking to you, online space from Melbourne. You know, to you, you might be thinking that, all right, that Nira, now the Nira is who is conversing with you. That Nira is an educator. She lives in Australia. She's an Australian, but she's Bengali. Arif Appa said, I do try to do some music, so I'm a musician. So these are the things, you know, coming to your mind. Or you might be thinking now, all right, Nira, the educator. But if when I go to my daughter's school, then that Nira is not an educator, still is, but at the forefront, it is I'm someone's mother, right? So that identity comes at the front. So what I'm trying to say, that all of us have got different identities, all right? And it's like facade. So depending on the context and the context, like, the context and the space and where we are, we define or we decide that which identity will come, you know at the forefront. So what I'm trying to say now, overall, so we'll come to the classroom setting or teaching and learning setting little later. But overall, what identities you think about most often and you think about least often? So I'll just kick in with my sort of identities, which I think, for me, gender is a very important, part of my identity. For me, though I call Australia home for last 25 years, but I always feel that I am a proud Bengali. So my Bengaliness and my Australianness both are very important as my, part of my identity. So language, ethnicity, culture, these are very important part of my identity. But if you ask me what I think about least often when I think about my identity, probably I would think about probably religious, spiritual affiliation. I don't think about it a lot. Race as such, I don't know. Yeah, not as much maybe. So what I'm trying to say, I'm just trying to give you an idea that what are the things you think about most often and least often. I was sharing my ideas, thinking that you might be thinking while I'm thinking. So I need some hands, or just unmute your microphone, and I would love to hear few examples, what you think most often and what you think least often. I need some volunteers. Just switch on your uh, microphone and start talking. Yep.
Good evening, Ben. I am Nusrat Alam. I'm from DEH department, which is Bachelor in English. So I have a question. Like we are talking about identity, right? But right
Yes.
now I'm in Bangladesh, and I think the first identity is that I am a woman, I am a student, and like my nationality comes a lot later. But
Yes.
depending on where I am, like if I'm in outside Bangladesh, doesn't it like differs that my identity becomes I am Bangladeshi at first? So it like depends on the situation, right, ma'am?
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying, Nusrat. Thank you for bringing that. It depends on context, but what I'm trying to say at this moment, what are you thinking? So you said gender is something which comes really, really, you think about that. And, student identity, great, absolutely. But as you said, national origin, you can talk about that too. Yes, that comes across. Great, great point, Nusrat. Wonderful. Anyone else? Some more volunteers?
Yeah, maybe I can say something. I mean,
Please, Sabrina,
as
go
you
on.
as you know, I'm an associate professor in ULAB's business school. But before coming here, I used to be an assistant professor in a Swedish university. This is very interesting because when I teach in Bangladeshi university today, I identify myself as a Swedish teacher. It could be because of my, of my growing up in, or spending so much time in Sweden, or, I would say that I grew up in Swedish academy. In that sense, maybe I have become, I mean, I think I feel more like a Swedish teacher when I am here. And I think it's about gender. That's interesting, I think. I mean, at work, of course. But maybe somewhere else I would think about gender. I would identify this, yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
I haven't
yeah,
thought
that's
about it,
what
but yeah.
absolutely, and that's great that you raised that point because as we talk about that, just and we'll come to that point that it's not identity. You Sabrina, great point you brought, and I was about to talk about, bring that. So when we talk about identity, it's not just what you think about yourself; it's how others see you. So, for an example, when someone sees you, even in Bangladeshi context or anywhere, and your name and everything, people might see you as a South Asian, or but you said that you really feel affiliated with the Swedish academia and everything. So it's the way we negotiate our identity, and our identity is not just what we think, what others think. And it is great that you brought that point because I teach identity and belonging, as a social linguist and in my classroom. And I was just last week, I was having a conversation with a student who grew up in a diaspora, was born in Australia, grew up in Australia, but in a diaspora. She was saying that, when I say, like, when I travel to my ancestors' land, they see that I don't belong there because I'm not enough Chinese or enough Indian. But then when I'm in Australia, they see that I'm not enough Australian. I'm,
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
absolutely. So identity is not just what you think of yourself, how others perceive you. And absolutely, Nusrat and you both said that, and I also mentioned that it's very contextual where you are placing and how you're placing. So it's really, really important that identities we think about most often, but most often in what case? Or what situation or what context, and least often, but in what situation, which, uh, context. And then brings back to the point, and that is something we'll discuss now. And I really need some volunteers too around that we'll be exploring positionality.
Can I
Now,
add something?
yes, please, Mritika. Yes, Mritika.
Okay, so
Go on.
I'm Ritika Kamal. I'm a lecturer at the Media Studies and Journalism Department at ULAB.
What a
and
beautiful
also,
name, Mritika, I must say.
thank you. And I'm also a filmmaker and curator.
Yeah.
So one recent thing, like I have been, what should I say, suffering from is like, as I don't like viewing myself from a gender lens. Okay, but it seems like it's I kind of want to talk a bit straightforwardly here, but my colleagues are
Please do
present
that.
here.
And I
I
believe
hope
this
this is a
space is
free
a safe
space.
space. Yep,
Yeah.
please do that.
So
Yep.
it's like people can't view us women walking about beyond their breasts. That's like the main part of our identity, that
Yep.
we have breasts. Okay. And like, so when they view, when men view women, they view them as, okay, so they have breasts and they have to hide this, so we can work with them, kind of like that. And then there are also female other female colleagues or others who are like, oh, you should be wearing an orna, this you should be dressing professionally, and it's like my identity is increasingly becoming related to my clothes. And it's what I think of myself actually does not matter. What others think about me is influencing me negatively, and it's kind of like hampering my work to some extent as well. You know what I mean? Like now
Absolutely,
sometimes,
I hear you. Yep. Yep.
yeah, because when I'm in the department, sometimes I'm like, okay, normally I don't wear ona. So now when I'm to university, I wear it, and I feel like I want to do a performance art where I am wearing shackles. But I know it will be a big deal if I do that, so I don't. But I imagine my ona to be shackles because it is difficult. And the people who view me like that, let them try wearing ona for 1 week straight. Okay,
No, I totally. Yep. Go on. Go
yeah,
on. Sorry.
it is actually like what should I say? I was born in the UK, then I was raised in Bangladesh. I went to the UK for my higher education, and so I actually normally just being a filmmaker and art curator, I am more associated with liberal-minded people. And so I guess when you're saying that identity is formed by people around you, it actually depends on who I associate with, who I work with, who I
Absolutely. Absolutely.
collaborate with. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
so
Ritika, thank you for raising that. But as I said, that identity is absolutely what you think of yourself. But absolutely, identity is something. Even if you look at the scholarship around identity, it will be saying that it's an interaction, and it's absolutely who is around you, and gender, the way you said that gender can be seen and perceived by different people so many different ways, and that's exactly what I said at the beginning, that we all bring our lenses, right? So we learn how to see the world through the way we grew up. As Sabrina said, that, the Swedish academia experience, contributed to her being, or, the Sabrina she is now. You now, Mritika, talked about growing up in the UK, contributed to who you are. And these kind of discussions are so important because it's also make us aware that this is the way I am thinking. But at the same time, it's making us aware that there are other people who are thinking in a different ways. And not necessarily we will always agree with each other, but how we can make this sort of experiences in a diverse setting more respectful and more inclusive, because the moment you understand that I have my own way of seeing it, we need to be mindful of that there are people who are seeing it through their lenses. Do I make sense? So that these are the conversation we want to make. And in our classroom, I always say that in the classroom and wherever I go and teach, that we often don't realize it, but our classrooms are actually the microcosm of the society. That it's, it might be 50 students, but that 50 students are, telling you what are the 50 different varieties we have in our society. So we need to be really, as educator, Mritika, as you are, we need to be really, really bringing those discussion in our classroom. Even whatever we teach, regardless of our disciplines. Like you are in the performing arts, I am in the arts, humanities, social science. Sabrina is in the business and economics. Whatever we teach, we need to be really mindful of that. Even the content we are teaching will not be understood and perceived and interpreted in the same way, because the classroom is diverse. So you might be thinking, oh, I'm explaining it really easy. But your easy is your easy. It might not be easy for someone else. Even the examples, the anecdotes we give, right? We give the anecdotes, examples from our experiences. So this is something, and that is exactly, the idea of bringing this discussion to all of us and having this discussion as educators, as students, that being mindful of that this particular diversity is not, because when we talk about diversity, it's very funny, because when we talk about diversity, most often we think about just the way we look different, or it's diversity is not just the look. Diversity is not just male, female, binary, non-binary, gender. Diversity is not just the different religious identities. Diversity is actually the way we think, our ways of thinking, our way of perceptions, our way of interpretations, because that is very important, and that contributes to how we teach, how we even reflect and reciprocate on our academic experiences, even how we are interpreting uh, or understanding the content we are learning, regardless of the disciplinary, discussion in classroom. So that is what we actually want to bring in here. And these are the question I'm posing it to you, that we talked about what parts of your strongest effect on how you see yourself as educators or learner. And now we are bringing, it's not open anymore. It's about being an educator, being a learner. What is your identity, or what parts of your identity you think more often? What part of your identity have the strongest effect on how others see you as an educator or learner? As Sabrina said, people want to see her as, Swedish in that way. Western, I would, make it more generalized, if I may say so. Then how have your knowledge and worldviews been developed as an educator and learner? And how are parts of your identities affected by the experiences and challenges as an educator and learner? So Mritika, some of your points, I would say that going to the fourth question, that affected as your experiences and challenges. Now, I would be interested to know that when you are facing those challenges, how are you dealing with it, or what are you dealing with it? You talked about your challenge, you talked about how it's difficult, it's traumatizing, things like that. But are there any particular thing or particular strategy you have tried in the past, as an educator, or, to address that? I would love to know. So I would love to, and look at that in the left-hand side. I tried to show different, the identities at the crossroads, because our identity is actually intersecting with each other, our different parts of our identities. So I tried to show you that crossroad intersection through that particular diagram. So I would love to hear some of the um, challenges or experiences which can be relevant to these questions. So can I have some volunteers? And I believe this is a safe space, and we will not bring any judgment here. So I really would love to hear more, sort of, uh, your thoughts, ideas, experiences. Any volunteers?
Can I say something? It's kind of related to Mritika. And it's like, sometimes I think I felt similar things, what Mritika has faced, because I try to wear sari almost every day, but sometimes I don't, and I go like with jeans and shirt. And I felt the look, of course, and I felt that um, okay. I'm not going to say, but it's like, you feel it, and you um I'm still ignoring to some extent, but I think over the time, I will start to conform to some extent. I believe so, but I don't know. I'm not yet there, but I'm still just trying to think about my work and, ignoring the other things like, okay, the way they look at me or, that judgmental look. I'm ignoring it still now, but I don't know how long I will be able to,
Yes, but
avoid.
absolutely. But when you say ignoring or trying to ignore, that actually sort of impact, as Mitika rightly said, that impact on your pedagogical practices or even confidence as a, sort of educator. That doesn't make us inconfident. Don't get me wrong, but this bothers us, right? So
Yeah.
great point, and I would love to work with, like, together, and all of us discuss that what can we do if this situation, so I would love to hear, if there is any strategy, anything you have tried before, any of you. So the floor is open. Please feel free to share your experiences and things like that. And Sabrina, it's so interesting you said that, because in November and December, twice, I went to two different places in India to talk to my colleagues in different universities in India, two very different parts of India, and the educators, female educators, were sharing these kind of experiences as well. So I can see that it's there. It's not just a sort of very separated one of incidents. So it's there, absolutely. And I can share my experience in the Western classroom. It was 15 years back, 15 or so. So I was 15 years younger. And I remember it was the first lecture, first semester, first lecture, Monday, 10 o'clock. So I went to a classroom. It was a postgrad classroom. And there were a middle-aged, male student coming from a particular culture. They were middle-aged men, and you can imagine 15 years earlier. So I was, a lot younger, and the first question they were asking me, nothing to do with my teaching. It's very much, are you married? And so these sort of questions. So gender lens, I understand that, as when I said that I bring my gender lens in my pedagogical practices, there are other part of the gender lenses which sort of make us marginalized, or make us face the challenges. I understand that. So it's not just in the South Asian settings, it's everywhere. Things happen. So absolutely, I hear you, but we'll talk about these things. So great. Anybody else? I would love to hear some more perspectives. We talked about gender, but other aspects. Please, I need some volunteers. Switch off your microphone and then you can just talk.
So we talked about gender, right? Right now. So
Yes.
I
Is it
would like,
Nusrat? Yep.
yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes, Nusrat.
Yep.
So let's talk about religion. So
Yes.
we are like mostly Muslim heavily country. So not all Muslims actually dress the same way. So some of us wears hijab, some of us doesn't, some of us wear westerns, and some of us wears abayas or something. So it like that comes down to same thing, the dressing sense. The dressing sense actually like influencing our identity, our part of ourselves. So when like in general public eye, when a Muslim young woman is not dressing according to like air quotes, according to the sense of what they call they should be normal, so they are giving us looks, they are like gossiping about ourselves, they are giving us like snitches and remarks that we are not deserving of. So then again, it like comes again the same things, that how we are dressing and how they are viewing us. So their opinion is what is actually influencing, or what can I say, like they are even affecting our identity sense, which also makes us like confused sometimes, that is that what we should do, or is that what we do, or what I think maybe that's what am I supposed to an identity be. So yeah, again, it is a problem of the
Yeah,
general public eye.
absolutely, Nusrat. Anybody else? So, what we are discussing here, so identity is not what I was saying first, that identity is not just what you think of yourself, it's what others see you. But at the same time, what I'm getting here, that there are social the society or societal imposition on us, that how we are seen and things like that. And this is something we need to be mindful that when it happens, it actually influences the way we talk or the way we teach in our classroom, or the way we interact with our peers or with our educators or with our students in classroom. So this is something we need to really what is happening here. Yeah. Now, that is exactly what, I was about to ask those questions, but you already shared that what, the how our intersectional identities influenced our journey, or we face the challenges, and, the interaction with students. And, Nusrat, you just said that how the people see us. Sabrina, you shared. Mritika, you shared. Now, taking those challenges, let's think about what diversity is. And if we are really, really, kind of, I would say that if when we are, we have these discussions a lot more, and bring empathy and bring those understanding, that might help us to see things differently, or you know help some people not to impose their understanding or their way of thinking onto others. So when we think about diversity, if we call diversity a what, inclusion is the how. I'll explain it to you in a minute, but keep that in your mind. So we are calling diversity is what, and inclusion is how. Now, when we think about diversity, it's not just only mean people of different races, ethnicities, gender identities, sexual orientation. It it actually represents a broad range of experiences, including socioeconomic background, upbringing. We talked about upbringing. We talked about the religion. We talked about different experiences in life. It can be education, life experiences, various different things. But we need to connect diversity with a broad range of ideas and initiatives to create learning environments that are safe, inclusive, and equitable. And that's where the diversity discussion should go to positionality discussion, because often when we talk about diversity, we talk diversity at a very surface level. We just talk about diversity thinking that in Bangladesh perspective, oh, you from Borishal, I am from Sylhet. The Borishal people do things like that, the Sylhetis do things like that, or the religion, the division. So the way we, Nusrat is laughing, but it's true. Oh, the people in North Bengal cook their dal in this way, or the Chittagonian people eat shutki, but the Borishal people hate shutkis, and we think our diversity just stopped there. Or sometimes we bring religion in the discussion of diversity, but often I feel in many of our contexts that becomes more of a discussion of division rather than diversity. There is a difference between division and diversity. Do I make sense? So uh, this this is something we need to be really, really mindful as educators, as students in the academic setting, that when we think about diversity, we really need to bring the aspect of there are broad range of ideas, there are broad range of experiences, and when we think about experiences, lived experiences, it is based on how much we traveled, how much we interacted with others, how much we have read, through our movies, watching movies, traveling, interacting with others. So whatever is our lived experience is, that contributes to, as I started with the lenses, that contributes to how we form our lenses, how we create our lenses. And that is part of the diversity. And if we don't think diversity from that perspective, we would actually not be bringing any diverse discussion in there. And we need to recognize, we need to foster and develop sensitivity to the needs of the people in various identity categories. Because we need to think that it's not just the way we look differently, or it's not just, and in Bangladeshi context, even the languages are, we just think, because most of the people speak Bengali, even the people from indigenous the indigenous background, they also, because as most of the people speak in Bengali, they learn Bengali too. So many of the indigenous languages are also, we are losing it. That's a really sad thing. But what I'm trying to say, that it's not just the our looks are different, our gender is different, or our religion is different. It's more like, what are our thoughts? What makes us think in that way? What are the experiences I have come across that makes me think, in this way? So for an example, I have been living in Australia for last 25 years. Now, if I think about the Nira who was born in Dhaka, going to a school in Dhaka, that Nira and today's Nira, if I compare, it's definitely not the same. And it's not just the age I grew up, grew older. It's the experiences made me feel different, made me a different person. And if I think about me as an Australian Bangladeshi, and think about another Australian Bengali, even living in this diaspora, we will not be same, because of our lived experiences are not same, right? So my childhood, the school I went to, the family experiences, my educational background, all these things contributed to who am I today. And today's Nira will be a little different from tomorrow's Nira, because identity is a very, very evolving thing. So we need to be, as educators, when we think about diversity, we really need to be mindful about the broad range of ideas and initiatives that create the learning environments, and that is called diversity. And that's why I use, if you think about that, we talk about diversity is the what. What are the things making this place, diverse? What is contributing to this diversity? So that what is diversity? Now, when we think about inclusion, that I say the how. Now, let me give you an example. I love cooking, so I always love giving examples from food. And Bengalis are quintessentially food lover, right? We love food. Now, when we talk about the diverse setting or multicultural setting and things like that, often there is an anecdote. People say that, it's diverse society is like a melting pot, right? So different cultures come and, it's a melting pot. I always object in there. Why? Because the moment you said that it's a melting pot, that means that everybody comes in, we all melt. That means we are losing who we are, that concept, and we all become a block of butter, at the end of the day. Rather, than melting pot, I would love us to think our classroom, rather than becoming a melting pot, we don't want everybody to lose their, individuality. We don't want them to melt and we form a block of butter at the end of the semester or at the end of the class. That's not what I advocate for. What I try to say, let's think about we are a salad bowl, right? So I might be cucumber. I'm just seeing the names on my screen here. So it's just, I'm making it up. So I might be cucumber. Then Adiba, you might be tomato. Tasmia, you might be a bit of celery. Then Tasin, you might be some spinach leaf. Anjum, you might be some onion. And Dr. Rafi, you might be a bit of beetroot. All right. So now, when we are thinking of the salad bowl, and then Sabrina, you are carrot. All right. So when we are in a salad bowl, we all bring our own texture, own taste, and we all have a sort of place to play in the salad bowl. Now, when we all are together, we might feel that we need a bit of a cheese in there. So, Mritika, you become feta cheese, all right? So, you come to that diversity discussion. So, the salad bowl is now there. We all are there, but then something is missing. That missing thing is the salad dressing, that sauce. That sauce is actually the secret ingredient, which is the inclusion bit. So we all are there, but there will be something which will tie us in to make the salad. Now, think about that. We are in arts, humanities, in a social science classroom. You are learning something, and then we are using a particular salad dressing, and that salad dressing makes us sort of uh, Greek salad. We make it. Now, in a different context, if we use a different sauce with the same cucumber, same carrots, same celery, same tomato, same feta cheese, if the salad sauce is different, the whole salad will taste different. Do I make sense? So, what I'm trying to say, when we are in a diverse classroom, we don't want us to lose our identity. We don't want us to forget who we are. We don't want us to melt as butter. We all can be different vegetables, all right? And then retain our taste, retain our texture, and then tie us together with salad dressing, that secret ingredient sauce. That is the sauce. And that is a very, very important and basic aspect of inclusive classroom. Often we forget that. Often we think that we all have to behave in the same way. That's the concept of melting pot. But from now on, think about that. We all can different, and how, if you take out the cucumber from your salad bowl, the texture will be different. The salad will be a different salad. If you take out carrot, it will be different. Or think about a very quintessentially Bengali salad, which we make and have with pulao and roast, that kuchi kuchi kore kata, like tomato and, the cucumber, shosha, tomato, piyaj, and bit of kachamurich in it. And without the kachamurich, it will taste gulf of difference. When you do the kuchi kuchi shosha and when you the dumo dumo shosha, that will be very different, taste. So what I'm trying to say, that you can bring, being a shosha, like myself, being a cucumber, in one context, I can be kuchi kuchi shosha. In the other context, I can be dumo dumo shosha. The other context, I can be the slice of shosha. And that will make my identities different, but I don't have to lose myself in there. So in terms of inclusiveness, often we forget that inclusivity doesn't mean that you have to forget and you have to leave your individuality or individual understanding, or you have to leave your lens and be someone else. You can still take your lens and be useful in there. Do I make sense in here? Any
Yes.
question? Mritika? Yep.
Yes, I totally get what you mean. It makes complete sense. Thank you.
That's
Yeah.
a very good analogy.
Yes, yes, and absolutely. And often I use that analogy, and even this is something because inclusive education is something I actually live and breathe, and this is something I advocate for. And I often talk about that the moment you talk about these things, even in your classroom, whatever you teach, if you encourage someone to bring their thoughts and ideas, in the long run, you will find that you are creating more space for others to voice and to share their ideas. And one of the things I would, in this particular aspect, I will try to bring in, and you will probably find it really interesting in that way, that often as educators, I believe that there are number of educators in the workshop today, and that will come to the students as well later. Often as educators, we want to be perfect, right? We take a lot of preparation before going to class. We want to make sure that our lesson plan is perfect, it works out, and things like that. Now, tell me the truth, my educator's friend here. I would say that I would be very surprised if you say that it has never happened to you. But how many times you have taken the best preparation and you think it's a foolproof lesson plan and made, you went to a classroom and you failed terribly. It didn't work. Has it ever happened to you?
Of course.
Of course. If someone comes and say it never happens, I will say you are the biggest liar on earth, or you have never tried even. All right. So it happened to us. That means that we all are vulnerable, right? You know. So, but what happens as educators? We are very, very shy, or we are very particular, not showing our vulnerability. But can I tell you something? That showcasing the vulnerability is one of the strongest tools as an educator, because the moment you will acknowledge that even as an educator you are vulnerable, there are things which you couldn't do. Like for an example, last week my colleague and I, we co-teach, and because the first assignment is coming up soon. So we were talking to our students about the assignment, and my colleague said that, oh, students, make sure you take the help for academic support and da 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 da, because you wouldn't believe I actually failed my first year essay, you know. And then the students looked at her and said, oh my God, you know, you failed? Are you kidding me? And then we talked about that. Yes, fine, you can, So talking about the failure. And whenever I go to class, I tell my students, look, I'm technologically really challenged. So I'll come to you, Sabrina, in a minute. Technologically really challenged. So if I fail, I need your help. So talking about these vulnerability not only helps you make a real person as an educator, but also at the same time, there will be a relationship building. And trust me, we nowadays we all talk about AI, all these technology and everything, but education is the biggest human exchange. And at the end, what we do in a classroom is actually, regardless you teach business, science, performing arts, humanities, social science, doesn't matter. We are actually doing at the very foundational level, education is actually a relationship building. So vulnerability is a very important aspect of that, the inclusive education. Yes, Sabrina, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to share with you something. I
Please
think
do.
when you mentioned about this showing vulnerability, I think it's very different in Bangladesh because I have
Mm,
experience like, from Sweden. So I would say that in Sweden it's perfectly okay that you can show your vulnerability and no one is going to judge you for that. Because we know that we are not expert in all subjects, and it's not possible to become all expert in all subjects. So it's very comfortable for us, like we say, if a student asks me a question and I can say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer, but I can try to
mm,
find an answer for you next
mm,
time, like that, and it's totally fine. They're not going to judge you. But if I do it in Bangladesh, I
mhm.
notice the student think that
You are
he
not
doesn't
capable
know.
enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And this was a shock for me because
Mm.
I mean,
Explains
I
it very different way.
yeah,
Yep.
and when I was a student, I didn't react that way when I was in Sweden, and then when I was a teacher, it was totally fine there. And now here in Bangladesh, and it's very different. And actually, one of my colleagues told me that never show your vulnerability and always pretend that you know everything. And even if you don't know anything, you just say, "Oh yeah, I'll just explain this in next class," and then you just skip that discussion. But it's really strange for me. And what I do usually when I go to the class, I tell students, because I teach business, so I say that, well, there is no right or wrong. You can always have your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I'm saying that it's the way, that it doesn't mean that it has to be that, how do you say it, holy grail, or
Yep. Yep.
you don't
Yep.
have to take it in this way. So what I did this time, I mean, after it's my second semester in
Mm-hmm.
Bangladesh, so I actually introduced seminar, and
Mm.
the students loved it because they could
Mm.
express their opinion, they could
Exactly.
feel more
Yep.
like included in the discussion. So yeah, that was all. Too long. Sorry
Absolutely,
about
but
that.
I'll come to Arifa. I have seen your hands up. I'll come to you in a minute. But Sabrina, I'll come to you in a minute as well. That not showcasing vulnerability, like we need to, as educators, this is probably our the onus is on us, that we need to make our students also, because that is an experience we have quite often with the South Asian students here as well, even the Asian students, that they feel the teacher should know everything. And but there are different ways. I'll come to you in a minute and address that. What can we do, to overcome that? Arifa, I'll take your point first and then to talk about that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm there with Sabrina. I think it's very important to show that we are also human. And I think that's part of that inclusivity, that we are with you on the same page. And we are also subject to mistakes. And if we do make a mistake in the classroom, we give an piece of information that is incorrect. We should be open to accepting the student pointing it out to us, or that, if we find out later that we did make mistake, admit that and correct
Okay.
that. I think that's part of that discussion. I also wanted to bring to your attention a question in the chat box that has been there for a bit. I think you've answered some of it, but I just wanted to read it out to you so that you can address it as you go along. So
Please
the
tell me,
question,
because I'm not checking the chat box. So time to
yes,
time, please bring that in. Yes, Arifa,
that's what
thank
I
you.
thought. So Oliur's son, he's a lecturer in the Department of English and Humanities, asks, how might we as educators critically negotiate the politics of identity given our positionalities within complex social and institutional formations? Our subjectivities are not atomized. They are constituted relationally through continuous engagement with quote unquote others, perhaps as necessary quote unquote subjective illusion, and sometimes even weaponized as an ideology. Thank you.
Absolutely. We probably covered some of it, but then even with the vulnerability discussion, that the moment we pretend that we know everything, that gives our students a chance of pretending to. They would not, they probably are not ready, but they will tell us they're ready because they will feel that we'll judge them. So this is a culture, and this is like chicken first or egg first, in that way. But I would really recommend that we should bring, particularly the Bangladeshi or South Asian or Asian context, that we need to, even as a society, Sabrina, I feel that just admitting that it's not humanly possible to know everything, or it's okay, you know, not to be able to know everything. And particularly with the social media and all these things, now everybody is expert of everything. And that is really, really not good, and not good for the society to grow and learn things, and not for the mental well-being as well. So it's very important to bring the discussion of vulnerability, not only as a, and talking about the vulnerability not as a weakness, rather that there are things, it's a way of growing as a person, and then learning things together. And then one of the aspect of vulnerability is that trusting, so you will share your vulnerability to people you trust. The moment you can create the trust environment, as educator, you can actually feel that, all right, I don't do well, or I can't do it well, but I'll learn and come back to you. It means you are giving your students a scope that, all right, you might not know this subject or this question, what I'm asking now today, very well. Why don't you go and read and come back and have the discussion, or helping each other? Because what I always feel, that admitting that the vulnerability or the weakness, like not as a weakness, as a negative thing, but something we need to grow more or learn more, is a very, very important part of growing up. And at the same time, learning with each other, trusting each other. And I often feel that in the inclusive classroom, or one of the most important aspect of inclusive classroom, is the trust. Because, and that creating trust, the onus is on us. In terms of, you know, answering all your, one of the points, that this kind of trust building, this kind of relational building is, yes, absolutely, as educator and as a student, we can do it. But the institution also has a role to play, how they can sort of contribute to that trust building, how they can judge that sort of trust building, how the students' voice are heard, but at the same time, whether the educator's voice, and particularly, the culture we were born as Bengali. I'll come to you, Kazi, in a minute. It's very important that we grew up in a culture where, when we were growing up, we were taught that teachers know everything, or murubbis know everything. All right. So when you are talking to a murubbi or a teacher or a gurujon, all those terms, they know everything. So when we are in a classroom as the teacher, as the guru, as the murubbi, as the gurujon, it's okay for us to say that, yes, I'm teaching you, I know this subject, but that doesn't mean that, I know everything. There might be, and I do it every class, like at the very beginning of the class, that, very beginning of the semester, if there are questions, your questions, which I don't know the answer, this will help me to grow as an educator. But on the other hand, I make joke in a way that, why you are coming to classroom, that, you are learning with each other, learning from each other. But at the same time, there are some questions you are not really ready to ask. You might be thinking, oh, is it a question? Like those who are student here, please let me know if it happens to you. You might be thinking that, oh, this is a question I'm thinking, but I don't know whether it's a good question, or everybody will think I'm a silly person. It's not a good question. But when somebody else is asking the question, you feel, oh, great, they're asking the question. It gives you a lot of confidence. But then when you might not understand something, but somebody else is saying, Madam, or Sir, I don't understand that. Can you explain it? You think, oh my God, I'm not the only one suffering. And I make the joke with my student that the most beautiful part of coming to classroom is to see others suffering. You are not the only one suffering in the whole world. It gives you a greatest pleasure. Oh my God, I'm not the only one suffering. So, all these things actually help you to think that that discussion of vulnerability, learning together, and that trust building is very important. Zareen, over to you.
Yeah, hello. I'm from the DEH department, and I was reflecting on what Sabrina ma'am said, Arifa ma'am said, and I'm a student, and
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of teachers here. So I was thinking
Yeah.
about the vulnerability point that you brought up. As from a student's perspective, obviously I cannot speak for the other students, but I would say that I feel more comfortable and confident myself when I see a teacher being vulnerable. Like, for
Yes.
example, if a teacher is saying that I ask a question, or any other student is
Mm,
asking any question, and the teacher is saying, I don't know. Can you
mm.
tell me about it? Or maybe
Yes.
someone else, someone from the students. I feel like they're human. They're also
Exactly.
they also they have their own flaws. They might Everybody doesn't know everything, so that
Mm,
actually makes me feel more comfortable with the teacher, and
exactly.
I feel more comfortable talking to the teacher. But on the other hand, if the teacher is like a full-on expert, shows no flaws, knows everything, that makes me feel a
And
bit
you can even
like, oh,
understand the
yeah,
pretension, right, Zareen?
yeah, I can understand that, but I also feel myself that it's a bit like I cannot say something like I want to be more like I want to be seen as someone who's perfect. I don't want to say the
Yes.
wrong thing in front of the
Yeah.
teacher. So I feel more anxious. So I would say that
Yes.
I personally really feel more comfortable with the teacher whenever that teacher is showing vulnerability or is like showing humanness.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to say.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
Absolutely, Zareen. That's exactly the point I was saying that when we think about classroom, inclusive classroom, it's not just the diversity in our thoughts, just from the students, it's from the teacher as well. And trust building, relationship building is very, very important. And the moment we, the educators, say that, all right, I don't know the answer. What a great question. You made me think. What is your thoughts? Or I'll go back and have a look and come back to you next day. That gives a lot of confidence for the students thinking that, all right, if I don't know something, I can ask, or it's okay not to know everything. And the less pretentious. Absolutely. Zareen, thank you for, Olior, is there any particular part of your long question which I have not covered, but you want that discussion? Please, please let us know. Arifa, keep checking the chat box as I'm talking, and in
Yes,
online, with the slides and everything, sometimes it's hard to, check the chat box. Thank you for bringing
sure.
that question. And Oliver, please, if you want to add anything. Now, when we talk about intersectional approach, Fatima, I'll come to you. All right, Fatima, you tell me. Yep, Fatima,
Yeah,
over to
thank
you.
you so much, Miss. It's my honor. I want to share something that about is the Zarian shared that students more confidence when they speak with the teachers. But in our education, or you can say school or college, we feel less confidence with the teacher to talk about because the teacher have favorable students like the first girl or the
Yeah,
third girl he choose.
yeah.
So I'm the most introvert girl in my
Mm-hmm.
school, and it's a lack of my education. Like I don't want to go to school anymore, and furthermore, I want to come back from school as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And but when I say that, when I see that, no, the first girl is trying. Why she's trying? Because she wants to ask questions that she has a problem in her education. So why I cannot? ask the teachers, like Miss and Sir, I have seen the problem. So it is just like the judge. It's a judgment that the teacher will judge you that you are a backbencher student and
Mm-hmm.
you don't know the study furthermore. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like our mental thoughts. Like we
Exactly.
think that the teacher will not like me because I'm a backbencher. I'm weak in math or other subject. But
Mm-hmm.
as I'm a human, I may have lack or perfect examples of how I do maths or other subjects. So I think we should change our thoughts. Like, no, my teacher will
Exactly.
not
Yeah.
judge me. I have to ask my question for my well-being.
Yeah. And
So that
absolutely, Fatima, absolutely. That's a great point. And that's what I'm saying that, you know, coming to class and seeing others and thinking about that, we all bring different lenses. And Fatima, you remember I said that we are like classroom is like a salad bowl. So
yes,
even,
yes, yes.
you know, the tomato, cucumber, everyone has its role to play. If you take out the cucumber, you know, you might the salad will taste different, right? So always keep thinking that even if you think about the fried rice, right? The amount of rice, and if you compare that with the egg, eggs might be very little, like, you know, comparing to the amount of rice. But egg contributes a lot to the taste of the fried rice. Hamid, I'll come to you in a minute. So every one of us have a role to play in a classroom setting, and we need to be mindful of that. When I have a thought, I have an idea, it might be good or bad, we shouldn't judge. Same with somebody else, that they will have their
Actually,
ideas
I
too.
really want to share that because recently in my campus, whenever I sit in a canteen or other side, many students say that sir is a favorable first bencher or who know more. I am a backbencher. I'm lack of studies, and sir didn't give me mark. Actually, it's not like that. If you do
Yes,
hard work or if you try to approach teacher with the knowledge, teacher will
yeah,
be verified you with that. No, these students
exactly.
know I should learn from her. She knows something. So that's why
Yeah.
I want to share this point of the view of a people. I
Absolutely. 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 And can I tell you something? That I went to a school, there was no backbench, there was no bench at all. And then I went to the university where there was like, you know, the all round tables, so no bench, so there is no backbencher. But if you, you know, take me to any auditorium, I always love to sit at the back. But jokes apart, but I understand your point. But it's very important that we share our ideas and thoughts, and we trust our, you know, mates and peers and teachers. Hamid, your point.
Assalamu alaikum, ma'am.
Walaikum
I want to
salam.
start by apologizing because I have actually not noticed the message, and then I'm almost an hour late. And this is a topic that I like a lot, and actually I have a lot to share, but I know the time is not that much, so I'll try to concise. So before I start, I want to say that I had the luck to study in international baccalaureate curriculum during my last 2 years
IB?
of
Yep.
yeah, IB. Yeah. So IB actually opened the world for me, even though it was like in the country in which I studied, they didn't have IB before our school, so it was very new and teachers didn't know that much. But still, I want to
Mhm.
share, for example, there is in a lot of IB world schools, there is a rule that you don't have actually this first bench, last bench
I know, I know, I
system.
know. Yep.
There is this like circular thing, like yeah, you talked about it. This is one. The second thing is what we used to do is like like we were taught before even starting IB that like there we are not even called students,
Mm-hmm.
or there is no type of hierarchy because like
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of cases students will be the ones to, in an ideal IB school, students will be the ones to present the classes. Like the teacher is just going to share some thoughts, and then the students are going to be let's say the muscles of the that like that core body that the teacher has shared. And one thing I just want to emphasize is like, when you ask students about who are your superheroes, or like people can say different family
Yes.
members or maybe history, yeah, like historical personalities. But for me, teachers have played such a pivotal role. Like, um, I just give a very small example. Like there was one teacher, we all have had that teacher that annoyed us, and no matter
Yeah.
how much he kind of like he scolded us, we didn't listen to him because we didn't like him. But there are these teachers, when they are angry, or when they don't like something, or when they don't want you to do something, you feel it. Like I even
Yes.
remember once, the teacher, French teacher, he was angry, and then I was surprised. All the students gathered together and said that this teacher shouldn't left angry, because we know how much he actually did. Like there is no pretentiousness in him. We know that what he's doing, he's not doing it for his paycheck or anything. He's doing it for us. So the students
Mm-hmm.
gathered together to apologize. And
Mm-hmm.
I think this, relationship should be emphasized, because like sometimes the way the teachers talk, maybe more of an academic tone, or like they build up this gap with the students, which can cause maybe the students not understanding or not feeling that comfort talking to the teacher, asking questions. And the second thing is like, I'm ending after that, inshallah. I remember one teacher like openly saying, still a French teacher, he said that, actually you guys might think that I'm a very, intelligible person, or I'm a genius. But the thing is, I'm not going to bring up questions that I know that you're like, I'm not going to be able to answer. So when I'm, yeah, at my desk, I prepare the things that I'm confident enough. So there is no reason to think that I know everything. So
Mm-hmm.
there can be a lot of things that I don't know and you know. And it's actually,
Yes.
and sorry, like, if the time is not a problem, there is one thing that like, one experience, I think the is very important to share. I studied in Bangladesh, like, for 1 or 2 years. But those are the years that I hated school the most, because
Yeah,
I
I
didn't.
understand. Hamid
Yeah.
will come. Like,
Okay,
I
sorry,
totally
sorry,
get your
sorry.
point, Hamid.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's exactly. It's a great segue. Your point, Hamid, in terms of the challenging aspects of a diverse classroom. That often, as you guys, Fatima, you said, Hamid, you said that getting students' voice. That. Ensuring student engagement is a very, very important part of the diverse classroom. And then acknowledging student experience and knowledge. Like when students, and whether you are a school student or a university student, you all bring some sort of experience and knowledge with you. And that is really important to acknowledge. And that is kind of, as I said, that in a fried rice bowl, like, chicken, egg, prawn, or a bit of, beans or carrots, every of that ingredients has some contributions to the taste, same as the salad bowl. Like they all bring their knowledge and experience. If you don't use them, you actually not get the full taste of that salad bowl. So with the student experience and knowledge, it's very important that we acknowledge that we want to hear them, we want to listen to them, what they're saying. That would help us, that would help not only us, the classroom, like students also learn from each other. And then creating respectful ground rules for class, that as Mritika at the very beginning was sharing some challenging aspects, so is Sabrina was sharing some challenging aspects. So it's a very important that we create a ground rule, that how we can build or embed or integrate respect in the classroom situation. Then catering to the varied needs of a class, very, very important. And dealing with the controversial and sensitive topics, listening to that. And when we are talking about the sensitive or controversial topic, we all need to be mindful that there are various different ways of interpretation, various different aspects of looking at that in there. So that's really important there. Now, Sabrina, have seen that you raised the point of equality in Bangladeshi classroom, and the grades are important, and it's really really important that we bring that issue. And I'm glad that you brought the aspect of equality. Can I tell you something for all of us to understand? We often they use word equality in terms of teaching and learning, in terms of the society being inclusive. But can I tell you something? I advocate that rather than equality, I advocate for equity in terms of making the classroom inclusive. Now, as I said, I always love giving examples using food. Let's give that example. Now, for an example, I have a big cake. You all are here. Then I make the slices exactly equal and then give it to all of you. All right. And there might be someone in this group who has a blood sugar problem, diabetic. All right. So having that cake, the same piece, will actually harm you in the long run. So rather than that, if I think that, all right, I'm taking not the equality option, rather than the equity option, and I want all my students to experience the cake, but then some of you really need sugar for energy, and some of you sugar is not as good because you have the blood sugar problem. So I'm making the cake pieces in that way that you all have the experiences, but some of you will have bigger piece, then some of you will have a smaller piece based on your needs. So that is really, really important in terms of making the inclusive classroom. Now, in terms of grading system, it's always, as educators, we need to assess our students, and there is no other way. We need to assess. However, if we really think about the grading, not just as grading, but also think about how our grading actually tells our students or teaches our student to learn how things do better in the future, might make the whole grading process more meaningful. On the other hand, for the students like you guys, Fatima or Hamid, Fatima, you used a lot of the backbencher, front benchers, all these ideas. I would say that for students, rather than taking the grading as grading just the mark, you think that that is a way of learning and growing better, learning better, of even learning from the mistakes and using the grades to grow better. Now, I don't know, probably one of the good, Nusrat, I'll come to you in a minute. One of the good, I shouldn't say even good. One of the things I would really encourage all of us, all the educators, to think that probably a rubric, a very clear marking rubric, would be a good way of bringing that equity perspective, not the equity perspective into the assessment part. Because the moment you bring the rubric, you are actually making it very, very clear for the students that what they need to do to go to what level. So that might be one of the ways. And Sabrina, I'm absolutely happy to discuss about that further with you, because to tell you frankly, with one of my colleagues in the US, we are working on a more inclusive uh, feedback and grading and assessment. Our paper will be coming soon, actually, on that too. So I'm happy to talk to you more about that, after this session. Now, even after this session, or if you are interested, please feel free to email me. Nusrat, you wanted to say something?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So, as someone who wants to pursue the teaching profession in the future, and that's why I'm very interested in this session. So, I wanted to ask that is it actually like gets ever like totally inclusive, because some of the students might not feel like participating or might not feel comfortable, just as Fatima said that some of the students get excluded be due to language or confidence or background. So is it really totally gets inclusive? Because we are talking about diversity and inclusion, we bring out the diversity because we get all the types of people in our classroom, but is it really inclusive to a point?
Right. Great question. Great question, Nusrat. I can share some of the strategies I tried. All right, and in my classroom, and some of them, I'm sharing those examples which really worked. I'm not saying it's foolproof, but pedagogical practices is something which is always, worth trying. We learn from trial and error. So one of the things I tried, that is, what you call in Bangladesh, the small post-it notes, the small sticker kind of things, the papers. So I use those in different colors, and I put those around my lecture theater, the classrooms, seminar classrooms and everything. And I acknowledge, I told my student, and if you look at the diagram here, even on the slide, it's a great segue, Nusrat, to your question, that recognizing the difference, acknowledging the difference, because that is part of the uh, inclusive classroom and acknowledging the diversity in the inclusive classroom. I acknowledge that there are students who are shy to ask the question, or they might be very mindful, oh my God, I don't know my accent, whether, it's understandable, or my language, whether it's good enough. So what I ask them to do, they can actually write the question, and then there is a basket or a box I always keep in my classroom. They can actually put those questions, like, mm, anonymously in the basket. And then later I read those questions, and in the next class I come back and say that's a great question. Or if they put it there, and I in the middle of the class, if they're working on something, I have got 5-10 minutes, I look at some of the questions, and that works really well. However, last 2-3 years I have tried using the technology, and that's prompter, and that's even better. I don't know whether it can work, but the paper thing can work in any classroom. But this one I really tried well. I tried, and it worked really well. I don't know whether you know the thing called Padlet. So I'm just keeping that, spelling that in the chat box. It's called Padlet. So the Padlet is something you can create some Padlet, and I asked my students to ask questions or engage in the discussion in the Padlet, and they can do it anonymously. So they don't have to tell their name if they're not really comfortable. So what I have found, it was so wonderful. The student who is very shy, not sure about asking question or making any comments, they are making comments in the Padlet, and I can see that because the Padlet is live, so I can see that. And if I say, oh, I don't know, one of you made a great point, this is a great point, and when they see their points are really acknowledged, their points are recognized, or even they make a question, I say, it's a good question, but not in here. When they see that I am taking their question and it's worth my answer or I'm addressing that, that gives them a lot of confidence. And within 3-4 weeks, I can see a lot more students talking. So there are various ways you can encourage your students to participate. And what happens in our classroom, and it's not only just the Asian classroom or the Western classroom, doesn't matter, everywhere. When we think about student engagement, Zarina, I'll come to you in a minute. When we think about student engagement, when we think about student participation, we often think that you need to talk to participate. We often forget you can be a great listener and be a great participant. So as educator, to ensure that it's an inclusive setting, and there is a trust, it's a safe space, we need to create various different ways where students can ask questions anonymously. Students can ask question, if they're confident, raise their hand, ask question. If they're not, they can just place the question on a sheet, on a paper, give it to you, or they can email it to you after the class. They can talk to you at the lobby, after the class, and then you address that in front of the class. If they are happy for their name to be project, uh, mention, do that. If they say no, 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 ma'am, don't say that, but just say it's a great question, because that will give them a really, really good confidence. Do I make sense, Nusrat? Does it answer your question? All right. I hope so. Zareen, you wanted to ask something?
I wanted to add to what you said and what also Nusrat said. There's this strategy that I think works on shy students.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a shy student as well. I'm very introverted, but I have found myself speak up more and engage more whenever the teacher calls my name or acknowledges me, even though I
I
have
was
been
just
quiet
about to
the
come.
whole entire
Yep.
time. I think that I also want, like Nusrat, I also aim to be an educator in the future. So I think this is something that I would apply for my students, even if the class is crowded. If I see students who are shy or have not been speaking up, I think I would call them by their name and I would encourage them to speak up. I think this
Can I
whole
can
thing.
I interrupt here? Can I interrupt
Yes.
here? It's a great point. I was about to come to that point, but there is a little bit of balancing you might need to make. Can I just share an example? All right. Now, knowing students' name is a great way of acknowledging the student and their presence. All right. Now, we often forget that if I ask you what is the all right, now let me rephrase that question. If I ask you what is the first identity marker for any human being, we often think about identity marker as gender, as we talked about gender, ethnicity, language, socioeconomic status, religion, all these things. But we often forget name is the first identity marker where which we actually get used to it or connected to. Think about 6 months old baby can respond to the name when we call him or her using their name. So name is very, very, very important aspect. So you are right, Zareen, and I was about to come to that point that when you know the name of the student, students feel that they have a space, they have a place in the classroom. It automatically contributes to the relationship building. Do I make sense? Because we talked about the education is a relationship building. Absolutely, absolutely important. But on the other hand, you need to remember that remembering 60 students' name is not easy, and not all of us are good with the names. Like, for an example, I am very good with the names and I can remember my students' name very, very well. But I know my colleague, they're a fantastic educator, but that doesn't mean that like they all can remember the name, all of the students' name. So what I would say that even if you can remember few names, Or even if you can't remember the names, saying that I'm really interested to know your names, but I'm not good with the names. So why not in every class, you put a placard in front of you, or even as teacher, you can take the name tag and put them like, some sort of strategies. So students will be aware that you are interested in them. So the name learning is not just their name learning, it showcases that you are interested in them. However, Zareen, when you said that I will learn the weeks, like, the shy student's name and ask them to participate, there is a danger in there. I'm just flagging it with you. They might they might be really happy when you know their name, but putting the spotlight on them in front of everyone might make them even more vulnerable, even more sensitive, or even, more shy. So what I'm trying to say that yes, knowing name is very good, but even at the same time, learning the name and remember the word agency, making sure the student has the agency to decide whether they want to participate in class asking question in person by raising hand, or they prefer to ask you the question later through email, or as I said, in a paper writing and put that in your basket, or by using the Padlet. Leave it for them, because you remember that the moment we are in a classroom, you have got one pair of eyes, but then there might be 40 other pairs of eyes are looking at you. It's a very intimidating feeling for some of the students. Even asking them, Zareen, can you answer the question, can make them really, really vulnerable and nervous. Even keeping that in mind is a part of making the classroom inclusive, that student knowing name is great, but that student might not feel comfortable in answering the question. So you might open the floor saying that, look, I'm asking that question, but I need some volunteers, whoever want to add something. Then on the other hand, you can say, but if you want to add something, there is a discussion board online, or there is a Padlet, please do that. You can use the technology in your favor to make the classroom more inclusive in various different ways. Do I make sense, everybody? Zareen, do I make sense now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I got what you said. I do
Yes.
completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Hamid. Any other questions so far or point you want to make?
Ma'am, back to the discussion that you did about knowing names. I think just as it is a teacher's responsibility to know, it is for us students also responsibility to get recognized. Because just if I give an example, just like myself, when I first asked question or discussed, you didn't know me or you didn't know my name fully. When I asked you second time, you pointed out it is Nusrat, right? So it is like that. When we ask questions a lot, our teachers are bound to get familiar with us. So it is also a part of our duty. That's what I think.
I wouldn't call it duty, but I will call it the word agency. As I said, that you have the agency to decide how you want to ask the question and where you want to ask the question. And as educator, as we have agency to decide how I'm going to design my classroom, as students, we should encourage our students also to bring their agency. And that agency is very important, because that is the part of the investment you are making. All right. Now, when we talk about diversity, and as I said, diversity is the what, inclusion is the how, we often feel that whenever there is a diversity, it's always inclusion or always inclusive. It's a very wrong idea. And that is the diagram. Keep in your mind. And I figure out that there are some students now, like Zareen, you might be willing to be an educator in the future. So always keep in mind that diversity does not always ensure inclusion. It can be, the diagram, you can see how it's exclusion or segregation or integration. And when it's inclusion, how does it look? All right. Now, when I am thinking of the inclusive environment, so far we discussed and things like that. We have got last 15 minutes or so, and we have got few ideas to share as well. But I would really love, from the educators' point of views, because I know there are educators here, and from the students as well, that think about three examples, like, ideas or examples or your experiences where you have seen that the inclusive strategies the teachers tried did really work or did not really work. So I want to share some of the experiences, even from the students, that as students, what you saw your teachers doing, and that really make you felt inclusive or included. And at the same time, what are the things your teacher did but did not really work? Make it very, I'll come to you, Hamid, but to make everyone, give time. So we'll keep it very, very precise. All right. So to the point. Yes, Hamid.
It's as a response to your question. Actually, I think it's what I'm going to say is it's a sword with double edges. So, what my experience worked for me, but at the same time, I noticed that this particular thing also was bad for a lot of students. So basically, when I was like in my junior ages, it was very difficult for me to love studying because I didn't understand anything. There was it was only memorization, and there was no reward type of like I didn't like we consume social media because of dopamine. So I didn't feel that like I'm studying, so what? So when I came to different curriculum, I felt that every time I raised my hand, the teacher applauded me. The teacher said bravo, and I was like feeling that yeah, this is I have to do it. Every time I do it, I'm going to get praised, and that is what pushed me to study. But at the same time, as I said, there are a lot of students when like a particular group of students who are extroverted, for example, have that opportunity to always ask and participate. Those students that do not, that might be actually brilliant or very intelligent, but do not have that capacity or that willingness to ask
I,
questions,
I,
might get
I get
isolated.
your point, Hamid, and that is a great point you made. That yes, that giving student the opportunity to ask question and encourage them to ask question, but at the same time, as educator, we need to remember that just giving one student chance all the time or one student taking up the floor all the time is actually sort of what is disadvantaging the other students. And as even as a student, the student need to be really mindful that if I keep asking all the question, am I taking the time away from the other students? So that is part of that camaraderie, that is part of this sort of making space for others. And that's where I said that bringing your agency, but at the same time, being very, very empathetic, very, very mindful that this is. We need to be included. We need to make sure that everyone's voice is heard. And often, as educator, I'm sure those who are teachers here, they will agree that the students who need the most support, they never talk, they never come to us. So they are always quiet, they are always hiding, they're always very, very shy. So this is also, the onus is on us as well, that to find out that how we can reach those students without pointing them, without sort of uh, s- putting the spotlight on them, or even making them more in confidence, saying that, oh, you never asked the question but you need the most. But how cleverly, how more intelligently we can actually address and get their ideas or listen to what they need the most is very important, because I'm sure that we all experienced as educators that the students need the most, they never talk, right? Anybody else? Yes, Farzana Mir, you made a really good point. The differentiate instruction for students with different competence, absolutely. And like for an example, sometimes as educator, we need to go to the classroom and we need to say, I'm doing this revision. Many of you might feel that you already know it, but some of you might feel it's relevant. Even for, and to make sure that to say that just those who really feel that they know everything, making sure that you say that how this revision can benefit them very clearly. So they will also be interested. Otherwise, you might make them disinterested, and then the others who really need it, they will be blamed for wasting their time. So it's a very much creating the balance between, but the differentiate instruction or more tailored instruction for various needs is very important. And but Farzana, you need to remember that even to know that there are various needs is the first step of inclusion. But if you are a student, Farzana, I don't know whether you are a student or an educator, but if you are a student, the onus is on you as well, that if you are not really sure that what your needs are, or if you are shy to share your needs, you try to find out to reach your teacher to tell where you really need help. Because sometimes if you don't share, it's very hard for the teachers to understand that how they can really help you. So it's a it's a double way process, but we all need to be interacting. And to be inclusive, we need to find out what are the ways of making it more inclusive, to get more voice, to get to hear from more students. Anybody else? Any point or any comment? Zareen, yes.
Yes, I wanted to share this something a strategy that made me and other student more active and invoked more engagement in the class. It was by one of my teachers, and what he used to do is that he would assign all the students in groups of like 5 or 6 for the whole entire semester, and he would make us do weekly tasks, and he would have us sit in a round with all the chairs in a circle way and discuss the task. And he would also join all the groups one by one and have separate discussions with us.
Yep.
And then he would maintain eye contact and
Yes.
basically speak with everyone in that circle, but
Yep.
in like a low tone. So he's basically participating with us and with every group. So that is something that really helped me to be more active and
Absolutely.
speak with the
Yep.
teacher and as well.
And you feel that you have a space to voice your ideas, absolutely. But at the same time, Zareen, as you said that you are interested to be an educator in the future, you need to remember that it is possible when you have got maybe 30 students, 40 students. But when you have got a classroom of 300 students, all right, a big lecture, it might not be exactly same way possible. But that doesn't mean that 300 student lecture cannot be inclusive. That can be inclusive too. But how you can do that, the strategy can be different. So as we are discussing that, those who are here, the educator already or want to be an educator in the future, as I'm saying that I'm absolutely happy to talk to you in the future and figure out some strategies which are great for your subject teaching, your classroom. Happy to do that because this is something very close to my heart. So please reach out. I'll give you my email address and everything. And, we can talk about that. Farzana, I saw your hands raised. Do you want to add anything, Farzana Mir?
আহ, আমি কি বাংলায় বলতে পারি?
Of course, আমি খুব ভালো বাংলা জানি।
আচ্ছা, না আমি বলতে চাইছিলাম যে হ্যাঁ মানে আমি আসলে একটা স্কুলে আছি, প্রাইমারি লেভেল এবং মাধ্যমিকে যাচ্ছি। তো সেই পার্সপেক্টিভ থেকে বলছি যে আসলে শাই স্টুডেন্টদের যে এজেন্সিটার কথা বলা হচ্ছে, ওটা আসলে ওই স্কুল লেভেলে তো আসলে ওভাবে তারা বুঝে উঠতে পারে না। ফলে হচ্ছে টিচারদের আসলে মূলত দায়িত্বটা হয়ে যায় তাদেরকে আইডেন্টিফাই করে ওদেরকে ওই ইনক্লুশনের বিষয়টা নিয়ে ভাবা আর কি, যে কিভাবে করা যায়।
এক্স্যাক্টলি,
ওটা মূলত
এক্স্যাক্টলি।
যেটা আছে ওই যে নাম নাম ধরে ডাকা, ওকে ওই পজিশনে না ফেলা, কিন্তু তাকে যে আমি দেখছি ওই নামটা বলে ডাকলে যেটা হয় যে সে বোঝে যে আমি চুপ করে থাকলেও আমাকে
রিকগনাইজ
দেখা
করছে
হচ্ছে,
টিচার।
মানে তার প্রেজেন্সটা
এক্স্যাক্টলি,
কি
হ্যাঁ।
সে তখন ফিল করে। আর তা না হলে যেটা হয় যে সে মনে করে আমি তো ইনভিজিবল ক্লাসরুমে।
আউট, একদমই তাই।
জি, মানে আরো কিছু ইয়ে করা হয়, যেমন আমি যেটা করি আহ যখন দেখি যে ও আরো একজন আছে যে হচ্ছে হয়তো তারই আরেকজন বন্ধুর চেয়ে একটু হয়তো কম বুঝতে পারছে, তখন আমি দুজনকে পেয়ার করে দিই। ওরা
একদম
হচ্ছে
বাডি
তখন
প্রোগ্রাম।
তখন হচ্ছে ওই অন্যজনকে পারে চেষ্টা করে বোঝানো। যেটা
হ্যাঁ,
খেয়াল করেছি আমি এই বছরই, যে তখন সেই শিশুটা আসলে একটু কনফিডেন্স পাচ্ছে যে আচ্ছা আমিও তো তাহলে পারি।
তাই,
তো
একদম।
এইভাবে করে আসলে ওই ইনক্লুশনের বিষয়টা বোধহয় আনা যায়, কিংবা এভাবেই কি আমরা
একদমই তাই
ভাবতে পারি
ফারজানা,
কিনা।
একদমই তাই। অ্যান্ড দ্যাটস ওয়াই ইউ প্রবলি রিমেম্বার আমি আগে বলছিলাম যে রেকগনাইজিং দ্য স্টুডেন্ট ইজ ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট, রেকগনাইজিং দ্য ডাইভার্সিটি। এবং আই কান্ট এক্স্যাক্টলি রিমেম্বার, কেউ একজন প্রশ্ন করেছিল যে আপনি মনে হয় যে ডিফারেন্ট ইনস্ট্রাকশন ফর
জি জি
ডিফারেন্ট
জি
স্টুডেন্টস,
জি
রাইট? আপনি প্রশ্ন
জি
করেছিলেন
জি
এবং
জি
আপনি বলেছিলেন, এবং এটা একদমই ঠিক কথা যে উই নিড টু tailor it for different students. But যেটা আমি জারিনকেও বলছিলাম, rather than putting them on spotlight, you have to do it in a clever way. And সেটাই বলছিলাম যে the onus is on us, দায়িত্বটা কিন্তু এডুকেটরের উপরেই পড়ে, রাইট? যে how we can work with them. এবং এটা যেটা আপনি বলছিলেন স্কুল লেভেলে, ইভেন এটা ইউনিভার্সিটি লেভেলেও কিন্তু ইন দ্য টিউটোরিয়াল ক্লাস অ্যান্ড এভরিথিং, শাই স্টুডেন্টটাকে তো আর আপনি ডেকে বলতে পারবেন না যে তুমি কেন কথা বলছো না। সো ইউ নিড টু বি রিয়েলি রিয়েলি মাইন্ডফুল, চেকিং ইন অন দেম যে Farzana, বুঝতে পারছেন? মানে if I see
জি
Farzana, I'm just
জি
using your name Farzana as an
জি
example, that if Farzana is my shy student, just checking, Farzana, is it clear? You know, or something like that, or even ওর চেয়ে ও হয়তো shy কিন্তু they might be good in something. ওই good in somethingটাকে একটুখানি encourage করাটা would give them a lot of confidence. So this is absolutely great point, এবং আমি exactly এই পয়েন্টগুলোই বলছিলাম from a different perspective. Sabrina, I got your question that open credit system, this is a very different, like, very good, important discussion, and I would absolutely love to touch base with you. Would you mind emailing me and we can figure out a time and we can have a discussion? I hope that really, would be something
Sure, I would mail you.
interesting. Yeah, that
Yeah,
would be
thank
really
you very
great.
much. Yeah,
No, that
I'd
would be
love to.
really great because this is something I really would love. And I can see that even in this particular case, because I actually work across disciplines and things like that, doing a rubric and, developing rubric would be really good. So I'd be happy to. So email me or touch base. Shinaya, I hope that I pronounced your name correct. I think a safe classroom environment, especially one that is psychologically safe, is highly effective in creating an inclusive environment. Absolutely. Like, look, whatever we discussed here, you have to feel psychologically safe, and the safety, the the idea of safety doesn't come until and unless you can trust, so the trust is very, very important. And if you really want to read about trust in education, there is, you email me, I'll send you some literature around that. And I also do some work around trust, identity and trust and relationship building. Uh, you guys probably would love to read one of the journal articles I published with one of my, few of my colleagues last year, that talked about different needs, different classroom. Farzana talking about you bringing different needs, and that is, Farzana, your point is also connected to the point I made about equity and equality. So I published something around that too. So if any of you are interested to get some scholarship or get some literature around that, please feel free to reach out. Absolutely, that safety, the feeling of safety is very important. And going back to Mritika, your point, which you raised at the beginning, that being judged, and Sabrina, you also probably talked about being judged, and these things are very important. And probably when we feel that judgment, and when the students are doing that judgment, they might be doing it from ignorance, or that's the way they grow up, or that is the lived experience they have. So bringing those discussion in classroom might take 15 minutes away from your content teaching, but actually that will take you a long way in terms of even making your content more understandable or more meaningful for the students. And so that is absolutely very important. I'm mindful of time. We just have 2 minutes left. So Arifa, Hamid, I know you raised your hand. You might have something to add, and I'm happy if you email me, or if you want to have a chat later, I'm happy to do that, but I have to be really mindful about the time. And we discussed the equity and equality, and that is a sort of diagram. I put that in terms of the equality to equity, and we have to go to equity to bring the inclusion. And there, in this discussion, it's a big discussion. 2 hours is never enough, but always keep in mind that the cultural rules and biases, and it's so funny that when you talk about biases, we, as human being, many of us will say that, oh, these people are so biased. We think everybody else is biased except me. We always think that I'm the only person who is not biased, everybody else is biased. But we need to really think that we all have biases. So once you think about that, that will really help you in terms of, the influence your teaching practices and everything. And just to tell Arifa that if the audience is more interested and want to continue this discussion, I'm happy to come back again, and if we get some questions and where the audience's interests are, we can tweak the workshop around that. So I'm happy to work on that with you for future, but keeping time in mind, I will stop here. But the discussion should go on, and I will just put my email address in here so you will know. And I'm happy to share the slides if any of you are interested to look at the slides later. So this is my email address. Please reach out, and over to you, Arifa.
Thank you so much, Appa. That was such an enlightening discussion and very useful. And I'm so glad that our students and faculty members are very able to participate so enthusiastically. We have with us our Vice Chancellor, Professor Shamshed Mortaza, who actually was behind making this connection with you. So I would like to request him at this point to say a few words before we wrap up today's discussion.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you very
Always a
much.
pleasure to listen to Nira. So thank you so
you
much
are very
for doing
kind,
this.
Shamsad Bhai.
I was the fly on the wall, listening to your culinary experience. And I love that kuchi kuchi dumu dumu shosha. And I noticed that one of our colleagues has become Freta Cheese. Mritika was Freta Cheese, you know. So, and Sabrina was Carrot, you know, so that's wonderful. And this is a time when, you know, Trump has banned DEI and you have made, you know, DEI great again. So that's very interesting. Like, you know, so we need to go back to this diversity, equity, and like, you know, so this is a whole idea of DEI, like, you know, so it's very important for ULAB, especially because of our liberal arts ethos, right? So, and I cannot thank you enough. And I was at one point, there were more than 150 participants. So unfortunately, like, you know, I'm in Cox's Bazar, like, you know, and so I could not, no, I had to, like, you know, bail out from my bedroom just to be here. And you know, Arifa has been texting me whether I can say a little thing, like, you know, but as I said, always a pleasure. And let's keep this dialogue open. And our students got a lot of tip, and it was good to see the students and faculty members sharing same kind of concerns, like, you know, that body shaming, you know, so being in the classroom, being bullied. And that's the greatest thing that I've noticed for this workshop. Like, you know, you have broken boundaries, and you have done it such a wonderful way. So this is just the beginning, and you have done it for Dhaka University. So thanks for doing it for ULAB. And I'm sure, like, you know, so this is the beginning of a great partnership. Thank you so much.
So looking forward to many more. And even when I was having this discussion, Shamsbhai, as you were here, that because it's both student and staff, and I went to your university when I last time visited Dhaka for, you know, for my book talk and everything. So I even today I was thinking back in my head that I would love to do some work around staff student partnership and how that contribute to pedagogical practices, because you are aware that this is one of the research you know I do in terms of the inclusive education. So I'm really, really looking forward to many more conversations and around this. And please reach out to me anytime if you have questions. As I said, I might not have the answers for all of them, but we will learn together, we'll grow together, because I am a true SOTLA, Scholarship for Teaching and Learning. And we believe that SOTL is something that says that we grow together. So let's grow together.
No, absolutely.
Thank you all.
Bye. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you so much, sir, for being here through the entire program. I know you are away, but you made time for this. And thank you so much, Nirapa, for doing this, of course, and the great detail into which you have gone. And again, and thank you to my colleagues and the students, especially, for taking such an active part in this. And I want to thank our IT officer, who has been also working late to make this happen. So thank you, everyone, and have a great night.